got a notification when you're live.
Yay.
Testing 1, 2. This is mic check for the YouTube streamers. It'll take a second or two. Good. So yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jenny Morand, Central Virginia Field Manager at the Virginia League of Conservation Voters. And I'm very glad to be joined tonight by Senator Lashrecse and Delegate Petersburg's incoming delegate-elect, Kimberly Pope-Adams. As well as our partners at Freedom Virginia, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia, and of course our wonderful community business partners, Resist Booksellers. And I'd like to thank all of the city and county officials who are joining us tonight. We appreciate your participation. And I'd also like to recognize one special volunteer who helped me tremendously all year, but especially with this event, Callie Burdette. She can't be here tonight. She's out celebrating her birthday, but I see some of her friends in the room. Virginians across the Commonwealth are hurting in the face of rising costs that make it harder and harder to make ends meet. We spoke loudly at the polls this November, where the cost of living was a critical issue in races across the state, including here in Petersburg, where voters clearly wanted a change in leadership. As we head into this year's General Assembly session, these issues are going to be front and center, and we now have a governor willing to work with the legislature to put Virginians first. Definitely, we can clap for that. This means lowering energy bills through policies that advance clean, affordable energy and that move us away from the volatile fossil fuels responsible for raising our electricity bills month after month. And it means holding big polluters and corporations accountable when they try to rip off Virginians and pollute our air. It also means advancing policies that make big tech pay their fair share after decades of handouts that have led to out-of-control development and higher energy costs. We look forward to working with the leaders here tonight in the coming weeks to address these critical issues in a way that puts Virginians first, advances a clean, affordable energy future, and makes Virginia a better place to call home. I will now introduce one of our partners, Jamie Lockhart, Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As Jenny just said, my name is Jamie Lockhart, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia. I am deeply grateful to see so many advocates, partners, and leaders in this room who care about affordability and access for Virginians. I want to thank our partner organizations again, Freedom Virginia and the League of Conservation Voters, for their leadership and collaboration. And I am so excited to be here with your elected leaders, Senator Lashrecse and Delegate-elect Kimberly Pope-Adams. They understand thank you. They understand that policy decisions are not abstract. They show up in people's lives, their bank accounts, and their health. Affordability is top of mind for nearly everyone right now, and healthcare costs are a major driver of that stress. Virginians are grappling with rising premiums, higher prescription drug prices, increased deductibles, and growing out-of-pocket costs just to see a doctor. And those pressures are being made worse by federal attacks on healthcare affordability. On January 1st, new GOP-backed insurance cost hikes took effect, threatening an already gravely strained healthcare system and exacerbating an affordability crisis that millions of Americans and thousands of Virginians live every day. And on top of that, preventative healthcare is also under attack by this administration, threatened, politicized, and funded in ways that make care harder to access and more expensive in the long run. That brings me to Planned Parenthood and why the defunding of Planned Parenthood in H.R. 1 is fundamentally an affordability issue. Preventive sexual and reproductive health care is one of the smartest, most cost-effective investments in our healthcare system. Services like contraception, STI testing, cancer screenings, and early pregnancy care cost a fraction of what it takes to treat emergencies, complicated births, or advanced disease. When preventive care is cut, costs don't disappear, they explode. People delay care until conditions become emergencies, driving higher ER use, hospitalizations, and long-term Medicaid spending. Access to contraception alone dramatically reduces public costs by preventing unintended pregnancies and associated complications. According to the Guttmacher Institute, every dollar invested in publicly funded family planning saves about $7 in avoided Medicaid and public health costs. That's real savings for families and for taxpayers. Planned Parenthood and other safety net providers deliver care efficiently, keep people healthy, and reduce strain on hospitals, especially in rural and underserved communities where options are limited. Affordability is shaped by policy choices. Budgets are moral documents, and they reflect who we believe deserves care, stability, and dignity. Thank you again for being here and for your advocacy. We look forward to seeing many of you at the Virginia General Assembly, working together to ensure that the budget and legislation passed reflects our shared values and meaningfully addresses affordability for Virginians across the Commonwealth. I want to thank you again and pass it over to Rena Hicks of Freedom Virginia.
Thank you. Well, Petersburg, thank you so much for hosting us. And I do just want to do one big round of applause for Resist. What a beautiful face. This is truly. So I'm Rena Hicks. I am the Executive Director at Freedom Virginia. We started in 2020 and we've been organizing for policies around lowering the cost of living. And so we were thrilled especially to see candidates on the trail last year really focusing in on this, because I think a lot of us can resonate with maybe the last couple of years, especially at the federal level, of folks saying the economy is great, the GDP is high, the stock market's great, but that doesn't resonate to us when we're paying our mortgage, paying our rent, going to the store and checking the bank account before we groceries, right? That's the economy for me. All those numbers up high don't mean anything until it's what I'm living day to day. So just really, really honored to be here tonight and to moderate, and super honored to be with our champions from Petersburg, Senator Lashrecse and Delegate-elect Kim Pope-Adams, and I'm honored to introduce them now. Delegate, yeah, give them a Delegate-elect Kimberly Pope-Adams was born and raised in Hopewell, Virginia. The daughter of a union worker and a school crossing guard, she learned the value of hard work at an early age. After graduating from Hopewell High School with honors, she earned her Bachelor of Science in Accounting and Information Systems from Virginia Tech in 2005. 12 years later, as a working single mom, she earned her Master of Business Administration. For nearly 20 years, Kimberly has been a public servant of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Currently, she's the Assistant Director of Financial Compliance and Operations, that's a mouthful, at Virginia State University. Her civic and community involvement includes the NAACP, the Dinwiddie branch, the Virginia League of Planned Parenthood Board of Directors, Lamb Center for Arts and Healing Board of Directors, and Dinwiddie County Public Schools Gifted Advisory Committee, just to name a few, you guys, just to name a few. In 2023, Kimberly ran the most competitive General Assembly race in Virginia. Do you guys remember that 2 years ago? Yeah. She fell short by only 53 votes, which is why we always say what? Every vote counts. So never giving up, she returned in 2025 to unseat the incumbent and become the delegate representing House District 82. When not working, serving, and volunteering, you can, in the very small time she has left, You can find her cheering on the Dinwiddie Generals varsity football team where her 17-year-old son Joshua is the starting running back. And then we have the lovely Senator Lashrecse, mother of school-aged boys, a wife, and working families champion. Sworn into the state Senate, finally, in 2024. She previously served 3 terms in the Virginia House of Delegates, where she held the distinction as the youngest woman ever elected to that body. As an effective coalition builder, Lashrecse has been recognized by the Virginia Chamber of Commerce repeatedly for her work to incentivize job creation in distressed communities. She was named Legislator of the Year in 2021 by the Virginia Education Association in recognition of her bold education legislation. She also made Virginia make history with the passage of Breonna's Law, prohibiting the use of no-knock search warrants. Her legislation also led Virginia to become the first Southern state to declare racism a public health crisis. To declare access to water as a human right, and to make Virginia a leading state in combating maternal and infant mortality. From Virginia State University, this is the crowd for her. She has earned her undergraduate degree and was awarded an honorary doctorate of humane letters. She's a graduate of the University of Virginia's Sorensen Political Leadership Program and a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University's Minority Political Leadership Institute. I'm going to name a couple of the things that, again, these 2 women, I don't know where they find the time. The Chippenham Johnson Willis Hospital. She's coordinator for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Sorensen Political Leadership Institute, Sports Backers, Virginia League of Planned Parenthood, also a member of the Petersburg Lunch Rotary and the Responsible Leaders Network for the BMW Foundation Herbert Quandt. She also, I'm so glad, not that you gave this one up, but I'm glad you got some time back in your day. She was also the former 4th Congressional District Chair for the Democratic Party of Virginia. Professionally, yeah, because that's all just, what she has time, her free time. She serves as the Executive Director of the Virginia State University and Richard Bland College Institute of Professional and Technical Studies. She resides in Petersburg with her husband Blaine and her 2 young boys, Blaine and Blake. So I'd like to turn it over to the delegate-elect first and hear about what you have planned for your first session. As I don't know if people know, but one, she was just at training earlier today, and then she just informed me that she's going back to Richmond for more training tonight because the session starts next Wednesday. So let's hear what you got going on.
All righty, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would be remiss if I did not start by saying thank you. I want to thank everyone in this room, everyone who's watching the stream online, because I would not be here without you. I am only one vote, as are each of us, but when we put those individual votes together, clearly you can see what we can accomplish. So I want to thank you for your support, thank you for your trust, and as Rena said, I am literally in the middle of training, but it's important for me to show up because that is what we've been lacking. And that is what we deserve. So even in between, all of these session preps and orientation, I knew it was necessary for me to come and let you all know. I, of course, am an incoming freshman. So with that, there are, a lot of navigating. I have a lot of navigating to do in terms of my policies and my bills. But one thing that was brought to my attention by a constituent was our Appomattox Governor's School, specifically the school breakfast and lunch. I didn't know, and I don't mind admitting, at the time, I didn't know that at the Appomattox Governor's School, they don't have a functioning kitchen. So the kids get their meals out of a vending machine that dispenses, ready to eat, sandwiches and things of that nature. But what also happens is that if this student qualified for free lunch at their home, it doesn't follow them to the governor's school. So we have students who have already proven whether or not they have an ability to pay, but were still put in a position to have to come up with those funds. And that should not be the case. So I have already drafted and I'm about to introduce legislation that would require all of our governor's schools to provide breakfast and lunch to their students regardless of their ability to pay, because that is not something that a student should have to worry about when they go to school. So that is one piece of legislation that I am about to introduce in the coming days. Another thing that, as you all know, having gone through such a close election and gone through the recount, election integrity is important to me. But what I find interesting is that a lot of times people on the opposite side of the aisle think that election integrity is somehow trying to make it more restrictive for the voter, imposing, certain types of ID laws and things of that nature. But for me, I want to make sure that those who are in charge of running the election lead by example. So I'm also introducing legislation that requires all electoral board members to wear identification on election day. We should not wonder who that person is coming in asking questions. We should be able to know with certainty and with a level of comfort that the people who come in and say, oh no, I'm with the Department of Elections, or no, I'm with your local electoral board, well, then they should wear credentials. I don't think that's too much to ask of the people who are representing us. So that's another piece. There are also amendments and legislation that the city has asked me to propose on their behalf, things that I believe are going to strengthen us as a city, to make sure that we are comparable and make sure that we're competitive. There's a lot of tourism on the way. And with that, we need to be positioned to provide for the parking and the availability that people will need in the days, weeks, months, years to come. I am also going to co-patron several pieces of legislation because, like I said, as a freshman, I'm learning, but I'm also so very proud to be the co-patron of legislation that deals with tenant rights. One specific piece of legislation by Delegate Price down in the Hampton Roads area would extend the amount of time that a tenant has. You all know right now, pay or quit is 5 days. Well, 5 days isn't even long enough to get another paycheck. So she has proposed legislation that would extend that from 5 days to 14. And I am excited to co-patron that alongside her. So those are some examples of the things that I'm already working on in the few weeks since I've been elected. I'm not sworn in yet, but that doesn't mean the work can't already begin. So again, I wanted to thank you all. Obviously, any questions you have, I look forward to that later in the program. But I did want you all to know that I have hit the ground running and that I am already doing what I can to make sure that we have what we need.
Woo! I think that's great. I think most people in the room can already feel like it's just a new year, it's change, and I'm just so excited and optimistic about it. So, and now I'll kick it to Senator Lashrecse to hear about her 2026 priorities.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I just have to sit here just so proud because I've waited a long time to have a partner in the House of Delegates that's going to be able to collaborate and uplift so many important issues that we have here in our community. And I now have that partner in a Kimberly Pope-Adams, and so I'm very excited about that. I want to first and foremost thank our partner organizations for having the vision to collaborate on this affordability town hall here in Petersburg. There is no community that knows more in this Commonwealth than the need for affordability policies. What I can say in the previous year alone, I can remember so many conversations in every category that we're going to discuss this evening about affordability. Whether it's the tenants that I've been meeting with, talking to me about Petersburg East and complexes and housing developments here in our community, and not just in Petersburg, but I represent 8 localities, and I can tell you in all 8 of them there are housing challenges and a desire for increased tenant protections. But whether it's those stories, whether it's the woman who stopped me in the grocery store and said, man, those egg prices have really gone up. Can you spare a little change? And I said, look at my card, I'm trying to get some eggs too. Whether it's the young family who talk with me about the fact that the amount that they are paying in childcare on a weekly basis is almost as much as their rent. Or if it's the family, actually it was a senior woman who pulled me aside at a previous town hall who said, I'm really scared about my health care. These changes at the federal level, it worries me. Do I need to begin to set aside a different amount of money for what's happening in the future? The stories are endless. The faces are countless. The individuals who are worried about what we are going to do to curb the expense that they are experiencing in this moment, I keep all of those with me. I strongly believe that as we head into the 2026 session, from the governor-elect to the House to the Senate, you will hear ad nauseum the word affordability, because we are singularly focused on policy more affordable. I am thrilled to take on a few of those efforts through several pieces of legislation. And I have about 25 bills, and I'm not going to go through all of them tonight, but I do touch on the ones that I think you will find of greatest interest. Delegate-elect Pope Adams just ended by talking about tenant protections. Legislation that would increase enforcement by localities of rental properties. For a long time, we have heard from the local governments that they want to crack down on slumlords, property owners that are not repairing the roof, they're not eliminating the mold, they're not doing anything about the rodent infestation. And this legislation would specifically say in the cases where there is a risk to safety, health, and fire, that the locality will have greater tools to now hold those property owners to a greater standard and enforce those rights. I also want to talk about health outcomes and transparency and accountability. This is my favorite wonky bill because you know, like I know, the Crater Health District has for decades been challenged in its rankings as it pertains to health outcomes. I served in the House previously, and I'm in this role now, and I am plagued by the fact that we have not seen the increases that we should in our health outcomes in our communities. But what you don't know is, and this is no targeted shot at any person in leadership, but for those who serve as local health directors, they don't ever get a performance evaluation. I asked the Secretary of Health, who asked them, who measures whether or not their job performance is actually resulting in increased health outcomes in a community? When you've been ranked 133 out of 133 in health rankings for more than a decade, something is wrong with that. And so I'm very excited about this bill. I think that if we want to see a change in our health outcomes, it does start at the top and with that leadership and some accountability there. To touch on education momentarily, we have a very difficult time in the Tri-Cities area attracting and retaining top talented teachers, and part of that problem is because of the teacher salary. I will be carrying legislation to move teacher salaries to the national teacher pay average, because in Virginia we have offered bonuses, we have offered 1% increases towards the salary, but that has not moved us to the national average. Like we committed with increasing the minimum wage, where we wanted to get to $15 an hour, and we selected a specific period of time and we did incremental increases, this legislation would do the same. It would adopt a specific period of time, and it would allow for incremental increases to get us to the national teacher pay average. So I'm very proud to be carrying that legislation. In addition to that, for my rural communities, maybe not as exciting in this group, but for some of the rural folks in the room, I will be introducing for the third time's the charm, for us to adopt a rural cabinet secretary. Many of you probably know that although policies, we all care about them, sometimes they need to be applied and adopted slightly different for rural communities. And so with a rural cabinet secretary, I think that that will get us there. I also want to speak to wage garnishment reform. Sometimes things happen in life. Sometimes we don't have the money that we need, and you can end up in a very difficult position, but that doesn't mean you should be taken advantage of. For individuals that find themselves in a difficult place where they are having their wages garnished, it's almost predatory, the approach that is being taken. So I will have legislation that will adopt wage garnishment reform so that you can pay back anything you owe, but you can do so without giving up the entirety of your check so that you can afford to continue to live and not find yourself further behind. I also want to speak to two last bills, and again, I said I have a lot, so I'm not going to touch on all of them, but I want to quickly note cannabis enforcement. I think that 2026 will be the year that you see a retail marketplace stood up for access to adult use cannabis. Virginia has operated in a bit of a gray zone for some time where it might be okay to have it, but we don't give you a legal way to purchase it. But in addition, yeah, exactly, sounds like a setup. But in addition to, I'm just being honest, y'all. In addition to standing up the retail marketplace, the most important part about that is the enforcement of it. And in Petersburg and in Hopewell and other surrounding localities, we've had a serious problem with vape shops. And in these vape shops, they have been offering the selling of some illicit products. Here's the problem from a health and safety standpoint with those illicit products. When researchers, mystery shoppers went into those vape shops to test the products on their shelves, you know what they found? They found products at 80% with fecal matter, bacteria, and overgrown mold. So while we don't have an active marketplace, we're sending people into shops to purchase products that are putting their health and safety at risk. And so in addition to setting up a legal market that monitors these products, we want to make sure that any place that an adult chooses to purchase, that we have enforcement laws to make sure shops aren't getting away with selling products that are putting people's health and safety at risk. And lastly, I'm going to speak to gaming. And that's because I consider Virginia to be the Wild Wild West as it pertains to gaming. We've got casinos, we've got skill games, we have fantasy sports, sports betting, horse racing, you name it, we have it. But there is not one consistent authority to provide oversight and accountability for these entities, and I am carrying legislation that would establish a gaming commission to ensure that when an industry does wrong, there's some place that people can turn to report, there's consistent licensing standards, and that is all happening under one entity. And so I think there are a lot of hot topics we're going to get into. If I did not mention something, I'm happy to speak to that, and I may also have a bill for it, so I'm happy to answer.
25 bills, was it? Or 30? You probably have a bill for it. So I just think it's so refreshing hearing their legislation because it really hits like at people's day-to-day and it feels very tangible. And a lot of times, even with other advocates that we'll come in, and interact with, and it's like, people want to have the capacity to care about X, Y, and Z and everything under the sun, but they can't care about that if they're like day to day, if they're worried about getting to Friday to keep the lights on, right? And that's why I think affordability has, I'm just so happy it's taken off because it's also just really a through line through all the issues. Like, I don't know what other situation I would be in the room with Planned Parenthood and League of Conservation voters for the same event, right? It's like the through line here is affordability. So I'm just going to start off with the general one for that, and obviously for the folks in the room, what affordability challenges do you see that are unique to Petersburg and the Tri-Cities area?
I'm going to talk about housing. I know you said unique, but I think in a certain way, we have a number of historical properties here in Petersburg. And as a result, those properties, in some instance, they need a lot of care and a lot of love. You can't just decide you want to rent out a room now and charge a significant amount of money without having to make sure that property is habitable. And so I think that because we are an older city, and I would say almost the same for Hopewell, because we are older cities, we have housing stock that is a bit older, and it requires some rehabbing. And so I think that while some of the tenant protections that are needed are shared, I think because of the structure of our housing stock, that requires a bit more here in our community.
Yeah, and I'll just to piggyback on what the senator said, I also noticed when I was knocking doors, last year for my campaign, I noticed tenants who were complaining to me about, they don't even know who to go to when they have an issue. They say, well, my apartment complex is managed by XYZ corporation or some LLC that is oftentimes out of town and impossible to reach. So as we talk about affordability, it shouldn't just be that the units that are most affordable are at a cost to the individual, to their families, to their health and safety. I should be able to live somewhere that, number one, I can afford, and a place that's also responsive. And I think so many times we fall into that cycle where in order to get something that's quote unquote nice, it has to be almost impossible to afford. And then when you get to the units that are within your budget, it's impossible to get a maintenance request. And that shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be an either or. It can be both and. It can be affordable and it can be somewhere where you want to live.
And I just want to add, because I just thought about it, we're also landlocked here in Petersburg. So there's a lot of conversation about build. We got limited space to build, and so we've got to take care of what we have, and we have to make sure we're making great use of the space that we do have.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think for housing too, another issue that kind of joins it is energy. Because when folks in this room think about energy and how it relates to their lives, it's your utility bills. So this is a little bit of a two-parter, but this year the One Big Beautiful bill act was passed, and that will result in the increased average annual household energy cost by $110 as early as next year, with some states seeing $200 a year increases. And this also was a question that came in for Delegate-elect, so I want to get to this too because it ties in, but real quick, how many folks in this room know what a data center is?
Data center.
Now that's beautiful, right? Like that's what's beautiful. AI, it's what powers, when I just got into this work a couple years ago, I learned that, oh my gosh, no, really, like 80% and above of the world's internet traffic runs through Virginia. So just crazy, but in 2024, the data center sales and use tax exemption, because all of those big companies like Meta and Google have tax exemptions to have their big data centers here, that cost our Commonwealth over $1 billion. So we're about to deal with a considerable budget crunch, and on top of one big beautiful bill increases. How can we make sure that we're best using our taxpayer dollars to ensure the data center industry is a sustainable partner in the Commonwealth and that they're paying their fair share?
Whew. All righty. Many of you in this room know me. You know I'm an accountant, I'm an auditor. That's what I do. So working in a profession where we're trying to find fraud, really are trying to find fraud, waste, and abuse, trying to trim the fat, trying to find money, trying to squeeze that last dime. It is so frustrating for me as a professional to know that there are industries that are making money, making good money, but not paying their fair share. When you say it costs the Commonwealth $1 billion, I'll correct that just slight bit. It costs us $1 billion for them to operate at no cost to them. They are benefiting from this. It is costing us. That is tax revenue that could be used for all of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. So, like I said, it is frustrating for me knowing that these industries are allowed such massive tax breaks, and oftentimes not even with a plan to eventually pay their fair share. It's just, hey, don't worry about it yet, and we'll let you know when you do have to worry about it. Well, we don't get that luxury. As individual taxpayers, we don't get that luxury. So I believe we need to make sure that these big data center corporation industries pay their fair share, not just in taxes, but also in their utility bills. Because let's be honest, they are driving so much of the energy use in our Commonwealth, so much so that we are buying energy from outside just to support the demand that is being created by these data centers. So again, I'm get off my soapbox, but just know that there is a huge opportunity for these data centers to pay more because anything is more than zero, right? So they can pay more and they can pay their fair share in terms of their utility bills.
And I'll take it to Senator Aird on this one, because there is word on the street that there may be a potential data center trying to come to Petersburg. So what is your position on that?
Thank you so much. That is the word on the streets. I think that for a long time, these data centers have think that they're the gift to us, and they expect to have the red carpet rolled out for them. But our communities are the ones who are impacted when they come. And I am not opposed to data centers, but what I am opposed to data centers that aren't held to any standards, environmentally, regulatorily, and financially. And so what I think is most important for Petersburg is, if a data center is being considered, is that we adopt standards and requirements for a data center to be put in place, both from the location that they are placed in, both from the environmental requirements that we expect them to meet, and furthermore, the most important part, the tax revenue that they are going to contribute to being so fortunate to be able to exist in our community.
So this next question is really timely, because I believe actually today there was a vote in the House of Representatives at Congress on the Affordable Care Act extensions. But how are our state lawmakers here going to make that kind of bridge between cuts that we've seen, not only to Medicare, but also what we're going to see if the ACA credits are not extended, because obviously that's in the House, has to go to the Senate, and then who knows what the president will do. So what can we do here at the states to protect Virginians from those massive kind of impacts coming from the federal government?
I mean, I was gonna look to see if the money woman wanted to get into it, and I'll leave it for you. But I'll just only add the easy part, which is just that, you know, one of the most important roles of the legislature is to adopt a budget, and we will be playing whack-a-mole with the budget just because of what's happening at the federal level and because of the financial environment we find ourselves in. I think oftentimes when people think about the healthcare services that the state is required to provide for, we mainly only think about access. But we have to remember it's mental health care, it's reproductive health care, it's every category of health care that the Commonwealth contributes to. And I think that because of some new industries that are coming online, like gaming and others, there will be revenue generators that we will be looking to see if they need to be allocated towards plugging the gap, if you will, of some of the money that we're losing as a result of federal action. And so I think it's right that we do not have one fits-all solution, but I can tell you with all certainty that appropriators, and I'm not on finance or the budget committee yet, but I do know that those individuals are closely monitoring and looking at where are we in the hole and where do we have to redirect resources to continue to provide those services, because we do have the shared commitment of continuing to provide those services.
Well, I'll just add a little bit to what you said, because I agree 100% with everything you said. Just for a moment, it is so unfortunate that we even have to have this conversation, because when the senator and I talk about having to fill that gap and having to plug that hole, it was preventable. It was preventable. The shortfalls that we are speaking of in terms of the budget is because we have someone in Washington, D.C. right now who is adamant and who is hell-bent on making people's lives worse off. And it shouldn't be that way, but because we find ourselves here and because we know that the cuts are coming, we do have an obligation as legislators to make sure that we do right by you. We have to make sure that at the end of the day, you still have what you need. And as the senator said, it's gonna take some work. It's gonna take some precision. It's gonna take a lot of work, because we had more. But now we have to, we in Virginia have to figure out how to do more with less. And as the senator said, as new industries are coming in, we do see an opportunity, but it's also our responsibility as legislators to make sure that we set parameters in place on the front end. So before the tax revenue begins to flow, we need to make sure that there's a structure in place so that wherever it is allocated is for the best use. So again, while we are trying to find ways to fill that gap, we can also be proactive and also set legislation in place so that when the increase comes, we already know how to spend it best.
Yeah, and I would also just add that in Virginia, just as like a fun fact, the legislators are required to pass a balanced budget. And so they don't really have this, ability to kind of kick the can down the road like some of their federal counterparts. So.
And I think to not sound so doom and gloom, we should also add in, wow, if we lose the rate of federal funding that we've had in the past, Virginia has done pretty well in the previous years. We tout a $3 billion surplus and all this extra money, even after funding the rainy day fund. Largely, that comes from not providing for the services that you should be providing for when you're able to carry that kind of surplus. And so now it's time for us to provide for what we should have been providing for and using that surplus in the right way.
Could not agree more with that. I will plug one of my favorite topics that Freedom Virginia works on is paid family medical leave as well as paid sick days. And I think you kind of touched on it too when we're talking about healthcare, and it's very wholesome in that it's mental health, it's reproductive rights. So how would paid leave policies, both paid family medical leave, which is when you have the ability to take up to 12 weeks of paid leave if you have a baby, if your partner has a baby, if you become ill with like a long-term illness, or you need to caretake for someone else, and then also the paid sick leave legislation, that's if you have the flu, if you have a cold, you need to take a day off of work. But how do you think that would impact folks, not just like for their health, but also economically, not having to choose between, paycheck and their health?
Yeah, well, if I may, okay, if I can jump in first. I think you may have said it in my bio, but I'm a single mom, all right? It's just my son and I. He's 17 years old. It's been just the two of us for well over 10 years. So I understand that paid time off, yes, it's about the money, but it's also about quality of life. All right, because I've been so fortunate to work for the best university in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Virginia State University. But what that also afforded me is the opportunity to chaperone field trips, to volunteer at my son's school, to get off work in time to make his game. So it is about the money, but it's also, like I said, about the quality of life. We absolutely need to make sure that everyone who goes to work should have the ability to earn paid time off. That is not a luxury. I believe that is a necessity. That is a necessity, and that is a right of everyone, whether you clock in or clock out, whether your salary or wage. You should be able to take time off and it not be the difference of whether or not you can pay your rent. What we learned during COVID is that there's an entire segment of our workforce who have been keeping us afloat. We didn't realize it at the time. We would walk in the grocery store and we would thank them for being essential. But now is our opportunity to actually do right by the workers that we've been calling essential. Yeah, they are essential, and it's essential that they have the same opportunities that we have, and to have the same benefits that we have. So again, I don't think this should be a matter of whether or not your salary or wage. I think anyone, if you get up and you go to work and you do your job, then you should be able to stay home when you or your dependent isn't feeling well.
Mic drop, there's nothing more to say about that. I mean, honestly, we've been talking about this for too long. We've been fighting for this for too long, and I strongly believe that now that we have a trifecta, there are no excuses for why we can't move this policy forward. I am excited that the legislation is filed and ready to be voted on, and I can't wait to vote for it.
Right.
And I will lift up in the Senate, they dropped that paid family medical leave as one of their first priorities, SB2. And then in the House, paid sick days was dropped as one of their first priorities. And Governor-elect Spanberger has been very supportive of paid family medical leave on the trail. And so I do feel really good about this year. Okay, this is a question from the audience. Will the General Assembly consider legislation to increase dual enrollment for high school students and/or free community college?
This is one of my favorite topics. The General Assembly has continued to be committed to increasing dual enrollment, and in addition to continuing to fund the increase in dual enrollment, they will also, if we have the money to do so, which we have been able to find in past sessions as well, increase access to financial aid. I think dual enrollment is so important, and the delegate-elect and I were literally just having this conversation last night in Prince George. But it's time that we get entrepreneurial about how we give access to both credentials, skills, and training and degrees to young people. It is not all just a high school diploma. It is not just all a college degree. It's not even all just a trade certificate. We need to give an a la carte option of menu to young people, and dual enrollment has certainly been a successful one for many of our students. And so I'm proud that we've seen a number of students utilize the dual enrollment program here in Petersburg and in the surrounding localities. And I certainly think that any way we can get more credentials in the hands of more students is to our benefit. And I know that the General Assembly will look favorably upon those proposals and that funding.
Yes, again, I agree 100%. I grew up in a blue-collar family. My daddy worked at a place called Hercules in Hopewell, and I'm the first in my family to go to college. So I know college isn't for everyone. I mean, my son probably will go, but not because I'm forcing it on him. I believe the trades. Let me tell you, there is a soft spot in my heart for trades, for apprenticeships, for the opportunities to learn something with your hands. Because once you are taught a trade, no one can take it from you. And recently, just a few days ago, I was able to take a tour of John Tyler Community College. Their president took me on a tour, and I learned so much. I thought I knew a lot about Bright Point, but I learned so much more. You can get your CDL at Bright Point Community College. So it's not just about, as you said, a degree program. They have nursing, they have welding, they have electricians, they have HVAC. I mean, all of the things that you and I both know, if we went home on a cold night and that heat wasn't working, you're gonna call that technician and say, name your price, because comfort is king. And to know that we have a location so close to us that provides for those certifications and those trainings, as well as, I don't know if there's anyone in the room from Dinwiddie County, but Rwanti. Anybody heard of Rwanti? Yeah, Rwanti, they're teaching our kids how to learn those skills and learn those trades. So I wholeheartedly support the community college system and what it provides, because it's not always about whether or not you have a degree. It's about, am I leaving better than I arrived?
I love that. All right, we're going to close it out with one fun question, and then I'll pass it to you guys for closing remarks. It's a little bit of a two-parter, so this is a fun one. So being a former staffer too, I just know those grueling, long days in session. We're talking 13, 14-hour days. Sometimes they go past midnight on the floor. And I know you guys aren't terribly far from Richmond, but what's one thing you do for self-care during session? And then what's one thing you do for fun during session to make sure that we're keeping it light?
Well, I've never had a session yet, so I'm going to let you
forward to.
I was going to say, this feels like a trick question, because there's nothing about the 60-day session that screams self-care or fun. Maybe the fun part and the self-care part is just eating, being able to get a meal.
Lots of food.
Because it's just really hard. You are in meetings, you're on the dais, you're on the floor, like you said, for hours at a time. I would say the fun part for me is when I get someone who comes to the General Assembly that has never been there before, never been to the Capitol, and they get to engage in the process. And so many times the story that I hear is they feel empowered. They feel like I actually am part of trying to bring about the change I want to see when they speak in committee, when they are talking to legislators. And so to see sort of the light come on and someone who never felt like there was a place for them at the Capitol, and then they do participate, I find that to be fun. I'm just going to be honest, self-care doesn't exist. I'm just trying to drink water and make sure I eat something for the day.
Drink some water.
So that's the best I can do.
Drink some water.
Question.
Lashrecse, you mentioned garnishments.
Yes.
There's a big problem in Virginia that every single jurisdiction has their own way of restoring or not keeping files. After about 5 years, most general district courts trash the stuff. Once in Petersburg, I called over
My bill.
Your bill.
That's my bill. So I'm working with Delegate Phil Hernandez in the House, and I have it in the Senate to adopt wage garnishment reform. It is a predatory system. It takes advantage of people, and when you find yourself on somebody's list, it feels impossible to get off that list, and they have the power to come after your money straight out of your paycheck or out of your bank account, and it hurts.
They want to attack widows and orphans and get that money from them. I'm really, thank you, bless your heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll kick it, Kim Pope Adams, you want to kick us off for closing remarks?
Oh, I was going to circle back to the
yeah,
self-care and the thing I'm excited about. Well, I'll tell you, anyone who knows me knows I'm going to find a way to go get my hair done. It might be 11 p.m., it might be 6 a.m. I'm like, is the water hot? I'm on my way. So that is my self-care. I will find a way. Now, in terms of what I'm looking forward to, and I'll say this and then I'll close. So I was at a dinner a few weeks ago, and there's another legislator in the Fredericksburg area named Josh Cole. And he had the audacity to mention that he knows how to bake a pound cake. I said, oh, do you? I said, well, Valentine's Day is coming. I said, how about this? I said, you bake your pound cake, I'm going to bake my pound cake, and we're going to both bring our pound cakes and have a cake-off.
More people should make them. Let's have like 6.
Which day so I can come over to the house and be the judge? Y'all heard me say eat, right? I do the eating.
I really enjoy giving food as gifts.
Oh, nice.
I enjoy cake. Oh, it's on the way. It's on the way. I enjoy baking, cookies, cakes, that kind of thing. So yes, that's what I'm looking forward to, is winning the pound cake off.
All right.
February 14th, 2026. Mark your
Love it.
calendars. But with that, I will again say thank you to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you to the partner organizations. Thank you to my colleague, not just my work colleague, but my legislative colleague. You guys, we're about to get some things done. We're about to get some things done. I wanted this. I wanted this 2 years ago. I really did, and it hurt when I didn't get it. But let me tell you, it has been worth the wait. It has absolutely been worth the wait, because had I won 2 years ago, I would have thought that's what it took to win. But how much I've learned and how much I've been taught, and she's being modest tonight and not letting you all know what a mentor she's been to me. What I've been taught over these past 2 years, I believe prepares me even more to make sure that this community has everything they need. So I encourage you all to reach out, to visit, to call, to write, and more importantly, to hold me accountable. Because I said it while I was campaigning, and I'll still say it today. Your vote does 2 things. It hires and it fires.
That's right.
And I'm telling you, I'm ready to go to work and I'm ready to keep my job. So I thank you all so much.
That's great. I love that.
How many years ago was it when we had the trifecta before?
Yeah, 2019.
In 2019, when we had the trifecta previously, Democrats had not been in power for decades.
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years. We were unsure of what we could do with that power. And although we made tremendous progress on a number of categories of issues, we still treaded lightly. This time, we are unapologetic. This time, we cannot wait. We need to act, and we need to do it quickly. Too many people are hurting. Too many people are without. And I am going to use my closing to say we all have to be unified in being unapologetic. I am on camera, so I might get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because that's just who I am. Democrats are not all created equally. And sometimes what I have found is that we go to Richmond and we fight for these issues, and you think we're all on the same page because we are reading from the same bulleted talking points, But then when it gets down to vote, when it gets down to acting, people get a little afraid. So I need you to not just come out tonight. I need you to commit to pick one day to come to Richmond and put a face to the issues that we are talking about. Because Democrats may be in Northern Virginia, Democrats may be in more southern areas of Virginia, even some Democrats in Tidewater. They don't know our communities. They don't know our needs, and they don't know why we're fighting so hard on these things that we've been talking about tonight. And so I am proud to unapologetically go to Richmond and not just talk about it, but be about it. But I want you to be there alongside me to fight this fight. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Honored to moderate this conversation. I'm going to pass it off to Jenny Moran with the League of Conservation Voters to close us out.
It is hard to follow such a tremendously perfect statement by Senator here, but that was going to be my next call to action for you all. Stay in touch with these offices, stay in touch with our organizations, sign up with our organizers so that you're receiving updates about events, lobby days, rallies, opportunities to come down and participate, and keep everyone accountable. And this has been an incredible moment of engagement tonight with you all. Thank you so much.
And we had one request by a younger Gen Z staffer to do a selfie style photo of everyone in the room. So if you all could lean into the center, I'm gonna take that real quick. And if you guys want to huddle around,
Turn around, okay.
come on, Jamie.
Okay. Fall, trying to
With my giant giraffe arms.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
All right. All right. You guys are in. All right. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Great job. That was so fun. That was so fun. Oh my God, you guys coming all passed out.